So with that said, we got a top target list to get to. We're doing something, a little bit different with our Hedges format at night, our maybe DawgNation.com after dark type stuff. We're going to start down from 12 and work our way down to the number one top target for the 2021 cycle. And with number 12, that's a name who was actually on our program last week at number 12. So Dallas Turner, really Florida and Georgia recruiting him hard. Outside linebacker guy, about 6'4". He wears size 15 feet. Was named the Broward County 1A through 5A Defensive Player of the Year by the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel. That's something that perks your ears up a little bit because Broward County is a lot of great ball players down that area, a lot of great football programs in that area. And for a junior outside backer who had picked up 15 sacks as a junior to receive that honor, that's pretty big stuff. If you saw the DawgNation story over the weekend, I believe we profiled Dallas Turner. Actually, he's got a side business. He calls it a hustle. He bakes stuff. He bakes cupcakes. He bakes brownies. He bakes cakes, confetti cake, red velvet cake, vanilla cake, chocolate cake. He even had a top five of baked goods that he really liked there. So there's Dallas Turner right there coming in at number 12 on our top targets list. Moving up the list or down the list, however you look at it, number 11 on our top targets this week is another big-time prospect, and I mean big, Micah Morris. If you saw the recent DawgNation update with him, Micah's now up to about 330, 335, 6'5". There was a bit of a tweak to his recruiting saga, and we reported that last week as well on DawgNation. Micah Morris, who was going to set to commit on his father's birthday in December, but then that's when all the coordinator changes happened, the line coach changes happened. Coaches were coming and going on the merry-go-round of the silly season. And then Micah Morris decided he needed to pump the brakes and hit the reset on his recruiting. Micah's now going to take 2 more visits, one to Florida, one to Auburn in the month of March. And then he's going to go from a top 6, which includes South Carolina, Georgia, Auburn, Florida, Florida State. He's going to pare that down, take his official visits. I think Florida State and Auburn are the schools that are vying for that final 5th official visit slot. He's going to take his visits early spring, and he's going to make his decision sometime in the summer with Micah Morris. 4-star offensive lineman, great athlete. He was a top 5 offensive lineman, defensive lineman challenge. He was a top 5 guy in the Atlanta opening regional last April. He visited Georgia and Florida State in the month of January for those junior day officials. He liked everything at Georgia. He actually had a backstory with Coach Matt Luke from the time he spent as an offensive line camp, team camp, O-line, D-line in Oxford. So Georgia, he told me when they hired Matt Luke to be the offensive line coach, that was probably the best possible replacement or their best possible, reproduction of that good vibe, good relationship he had with a coach. So Georgia did some work there by bringing in Matt Luke, especially in terms of the Micah Morris recruitment. Next on our list, we've got Will Shipley. He's down a little bit from this week because I think he's probably, in my mind, the best fit Georgia could have at running back because of the different skill set he has. He has a 4.4 in the 40, a laser 40. He can run 3.9, 3.94 in the short shuttle. He's got a 4.3 GPA. He averaged 17 yards per catch as an all-purpose back for a state championship team. It's a very contested recruitment, though. You got Clemson in the mix there. You got Notre Dame in the mix there. There's also over 24 members of Will Shipley's family that graduated from North Carolina State, including his immediate family and both parents. Will Shipley is a 5-star all-purpose back on the 24/7 Sports Composite. Georgia really got in good there and really started to become a factor in his recruitment when Georgia hosted him for the Texas A&M game last November. Moving on down the list, we've got number 10 on the list, and that's going to be Quentin Somerville. Number 9. Let me get my math right. Quentin Somerville. If you guys saw that DawgNation.com story, you know the particulars. He's from Arizona. He is from Saguaro High School, which was the school of 5-star Georgia cornerback signee Keely Ringo in the 2020 class. He had a great first visit. Interesting story here because Quentin Somerville's backstory with Georgia goes back to when he was 6 years old in Arizona watching ball games on TV, seeing A.J. Green making big catches, and for some reason it resonated in his brain that that would be a great place to play college football. He always associated Georgia with a big boy, a big-time, big-box college football program. He had an amazing visit to Georgia in January. It says Georgia is very likely going to get another unofficial visit as well as an official visit during his recruiting timeline. So Quentin Somerville, that's a name to know. Really meshed well there with Kirby Smart, meshed well with Dan Lanning, continues to do so. He's got, funny story, Keely Ringo didn't really go too hard in the paint about telling Quentin Somerville about what Georgia was all about. He just kind of gave him one of those, bruh, I just want you to see it. I want you to know what Georgia's all about. And then he's going to give you that look that's kind of like, I told you so, bruh. And that's exactly what happened there. Quentin said it was pretty funny as he recalled that story. Keely just looked at him and he's like, man, just gave him that look, and he was laughing because Quentin Somerville knew what Keely Ringo was talking about. He wouldn't have to sell Georgia too hard once he saw it. Coming down the list right now at number 8 on our top targets for 2021, you're going to see a running back right there. That is Lavassier Carroll, formerly of Warrenton, Georgia, Warren County, Georgia. He is an electric back, kind of that mix between the thunder and lightning, the big body, the great speed. Lavassier Carroll's from the Augusta area, but he's now at IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. He's going to take his official visits during the spring. He's going to check out all of the schools, and then he's going to make his decision on, got a specific commitment date in mind. You saw some of that chatter last week where Lavassier was kind of having fun with folks on social media, wondering if he's going to commit right away. Does he need to go ahead and commit? It'd be very interesting to watch Lavassier Carroll. He was, really the school that offered him first and recruited him the hardest was South Carolina. South Carolina even drew a commitment from Lavassier Carroll for a time, but then when bigger schools like Ohio State, Georgia, kind of jumped into the mix and started recruiting him just as hard as the Gamecocks, he saw the need to open his recruitment back up. He's been to Georgia a lot of times. Georgia's going to have a very interesting look in its 2021 class. Still think they're going to take 2 running backs, but I think they're going to have to figure out which is the best 2, and it might, quite frankly, be the first 2 big names that wish to commit to be a part of the 2021 class to figure out that running back spot, because you're going to see a couple more running back names in the pecking order right now on our top targets. Speaking of running backs, we got a 3-pack coming at you. Bang, bang, bang. Lavassier Carroll was the first. Next one up is Evan Pryor. Evan Pryor recently named his top 6. He included Georgia in his top 6. Really, to me, feels like from his indications that it's really a top 3 right now with Ohio State, Penn State, and Georgia. He's going to take some official visits as well. He wants to have his decision done during the summer as well. Georgia had another strong visit. He's been to Georgia a lot of times. Was there for junior days. He's the guy that tells me he can really whip up some dope chicken and waffles. He thinks of himself as a breakfast guy. If he had to impress a future Miss North Carolina, he would cook her some breakfast to show him he's a little bit more than a jock football player. I think Evan Pryor ranks as the nation's number 7 running back. Got great speed. He's kind of more of that really quick, lightning type guy that, make a move and be gone in a blur type guy in the class of 2021. Like young Will Shipley, he's another running back from North Carolina. Next up on the board, we're going to another in-state running back. Like a lot of things about Kody Brown, he plays at Parkview. He really turned the 2021 playoffs into his own showcase. He has a 4.0 GPA. He's never made a B in his life. Georgia is one of the top schools coming after him. He likes the relationship there with Dell McGee. It's about 220, 225, and quite frankly, before Kendall Milton arrived in Athens as an early enrollee, Kody Brown was already as big as anybody in the Georgia backfield. He played his junior year at about 220, 225, had some great games in the playoffs, really impressed folks a lot. Kody Brown doesn't have any sort of specific timeline, and when we get around to telling his story on DawgNation.com, I'm going to give him high marks for off the field and character for what he's all about and his makeup. Again, if you see a trend here with a lot of these Georgia Bulldog targets, a lot of these guys are going to have the high GPAs. A lot of these guys are going to be excelling in the classroom because that's simply a barometer and something Georgia's looking for now with a lot of their elite targets. Next on the list, we're going number 3 on our 2021 top targets for 2021. Excuse me, number 5. Got a little ahead of myself. That's Tony Grimes. You're going to hear from Tony Grimes a little bit later in the program. Nation's number 1 cornerback for the class of 2021. He's out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, kind of that area, the 757. Very motivated young man. He sees himself as a guy that can come in right away and wants to play early, wants to go somewhere where he can be developed, wants to go somewhere he can be challenged. He is also going to be an early enrollee in the class of 2021 as well. Next on our list, I think we're going to have another cornerback here. This is a guy that has some Georgia ties. He grew up in the Atlanta area. That is Isaiah Johnson out of Bluefield, West Virginia. Isaiah Johnson's one of those guys. He qualified for the opening as a junior, as a rising junior. Did very well out in Frisco, Texas. Was on the 7-on-7 championship team with guys like Jalen Kimber, Noah Sewell. When you get picked to go to a elite opening camp when you're just a junior, that's the cream of the crop. Those are the top tier guys. He was also in town for Georgia for a junior day visit. He visited along with Tony Grimes in Athens, and those two guys buddied up as well. And I'm told by sources all around that situation that they're giving pretty strong consideration to trying to find a spot to where they can play together because they want to play with another elite corner on the other side for their college experience. Isaiah Johnson, I'm going to tease something that's coming up later in the show. We're going to take a look at the recent reevaluations and the re-ranks for 24/7 Sports, in which Georgia Bulldog targets went up and went down. Interesting news there with Isaiah Johnson as well. You got 2 cornerbacks. Before that, you had 3 running backs. The next position that's coming up right there for Georgia is going to be in the class of 2021, the next position you're going to have coming up there is going to be an offensive lineman at number 3. That is Amarius Mims, the 5-star out of Cochran, Georgia. That's Bleckley County, those Royals. What can you say about him other than he is a prototype, future left tackle type target? Georgia's been in on him in a big way for quite some time. Georgia was his public leader. Then Sam Pittman went to Arkansas. LSU and Alabama kind of eked ahead, but then Georgia took got him in town for another junior day visit. He was there when the elite wide receiver Mario Williams was in town, when Brock Vandegrift was in town. A story that comes to my mind about Amarius Mims is the first time Brock Vandegrift met Amarius Mims. They were on the Georgia campus, and Kirby Smart pointed to Amarius Mims and pointed to Brock, and he said, "That guy's going to be blocking for you in college one day." Trying to sow the seeds right there, and it could very well come true because Brock Vandegrift is committed to Georgia, and Amarius Mims has Georgia in his top group of schools in the class of 21. Moving up the top targets list right here, let's take a look at another one of our top targets for 2021. That's the number 2 guy on this list. He also benefited from a recent re-rank from 24/7 Sports. That's Barrett Carter. Call him Mr. Carter a lot because he plays like a grown man on the football field. Very instinctual, very physical, very fast player. The young man out of North Gwinnett is a bulldog at North Gwinnett. He trains, does speed training, does agility training with a lot of DBs at North Gwinnett and around the Gwinnett County area. He's one of those true 3-down linebackers. He's a guy that's going to be about 6'2", about 215 pounds. Georgia was a school that made it very clear to him that he was a priority during his junior day visit. He also visited Auburn. Ohio State is a factor in his recruitment as well. Georgia Tech, he recently released a top 11 as well through his social media account. Barrett Carter, a big potential piece for Georgia in its 2021 recruiting class. That leads us to the number 1 target. Little bit of news over the weekend about James Williams. 5-star. One of the things I like about James Williams, besides his leadership, besides his range at safety, is the young man who's now transferred from Western High School to American Heritage for his senior year. Is everywhere you read, everywhere you see, he's listed as a 6'5" safety. Not really. First time I met him, he says, "I'm not really that tall. I'm only about 6'4" and a lot of change, but not quite 6'5". Love players that are proud enough and confident enough in their abilities to just be honest and not try to embellish anything, that doesn't want the first time they meet a coach to be a disappointment by making themselves out to be bigger or taller than they actually are. I thought it was interesting when he released his top 3. A lot of Miami Hurricane fans were disappointed because when he included his other 2 schools in his top 3, There was Clemson, there was Alabama, and there was Georgia. Georgia continues to be the school that gets him on campus for visits. He was back for another junior day. There are clear, strong ties between the staff and also the players on the Georgia team in the 2021 class. And he's there because we don't cover, we don't write about, we don't evaluate, we don't see a lot of safeties with his true ball skills. I think one of the common misconceptions there with James Williams is that, hey, that dude's going to eventually be an inside linebacker, an outside linebacker because he's so big. When you see him compete against elite athletes, I remember the Pylon National Championships in Atlanta last May. I watched him for about 9 minutes, and I saw him making plays all over the field. I saw him helping his teammates, and I saw him pick off about 3 balls in about 9 minutes. This is a young man that feels he can be a safety and has the desire and the ability to be a safety at the college level, no matter how tall he is. And I keep coming back to it. Safeties are not that big. That's going to be out of the range of the normal safety, even the elite NFL draft picks. But when you start bringing in 6'7" tight ends like Darnell Washington, Eric Gilbert, Theo Johnson, those big body tight ends that have receiver skills, going to be hard for a 6'2" linebacker to cover him. Going to be hard for a 6'1" corner to cover him. That's why you need a safety with that size and length like James Williams to kind of be a neutralizer for a potential game changer tight end. All these new wave tight ends that are coming across right now. And with that, we're at our 15-minute mark, 16-minute mark. That puts us at the end of our top targets for the 2021 class. Hope you guys had a chance to kind of see what was going on there. Going to be some ebb and flow right now. Top targets, and this is my buddy Brandon Adams' favorite part. We're going to call this, Connor, always the Clark County phone book section, where these are not just the only 12 targets Georgia's going after right now. There's a list of names that were kind of just off the cusp of being that top target mix of a fit, mutual attraction, and also game-breaking ability. There's a lot of other names, especially everybody's wondering where the wide receivers at, where are the tackles at, where are the other players on the board, where are the tight ends at. Let's take a look at those honorable mention, those guys just off the top targets list for 2021. You see Brock Bowers right there. He had a huge leap in the 24/7 Sports ranking. You see Isaiah Brevard, that's a wide receiver out of Mississippi. Terrence Ferguson, the Georgia peach of an offensive lineman out of Peach County. Jordan Hancock out of North Gwinnett. That's Barrett Carter's teammate actually at North Gwinnett, a prize cornerback in the 2021 class. Shmael Mondon Jr. out of Paulding County. We're going to write about him fairly soon on DawgNation.com. Got an interesting aspect to his story as well. You keep looking down the list. There's Chaz Chambliss out of Carrollton. Tim Keenan out of Birmingham, Alabama. That's a defensive tackle. Mario Williams, a name that probably if Georgia wasn't so scattered, smothered, and covered at the wide receiver position in 2020 with the the 5 signees they had for the receiver position. Mario Williams and Brock Bowers, those 2 guys might be the guys that are closest to cracking that top 12 top targets list. Let me leave you with another name. Javari Ritzie right there on that board. That guy's out of North Carolina. He runs track. He runs the indoor. He throws the discus. He throws the shot. He runs the 200. He runs the 4x200 relays for his high school team. And that guy's about 6'4", about 265 as well. He's a guy that would fit in well for that 3-technique, 5-technique look right there for Georgia. He had a great visit to Georgia in January as well, Mr. Ritzie out of North Carolina. And Javari tells me he's going to come back in April for another unofficial visit to make sure all those good vibes that he felt and he realized and he kind of processed from that Georgia visit were going to be true, or going to be even stronger on the second time. There you have it right there. That's the top targets, and that's also the Clark County phone book of all those other guys that we see as major targets for Georgia at this point in the 2021 class.